Favored by the early Christians, most of Plato's writings still survive. Yet, despite his renown, he is still often misunderstood or misrepresented. Avoiding any overall analysis or categorization, in this video you may learn details about one of Plato's dialogues. Laches. Let the children educate the parents. This play starts with a pair of characters returning from an exhibition of skill in heavy armor. They never make clear what this skill consists of. I say it sounds like a video game skill. The two people that attended the exhibition are sons of historical characters. One of them, Lysimachus, was the son of Aristides. The other, Melesias, was the son of Thucydides, the military general and historian. You may also learn about his writings on this channel. There are other famous people. The two prior men meet with Nicias and Laches. They were both influential generals, critical in the fight against Sparta. You may learn about Nicias and Aristides from Plutarch. Either way, Melesias and Lysimachus are frustrated that they did not reach the fame and renown of their parents.
The truth is that we are ashamed of this contrast being seen by them, and we blame our fathers for letting us be spoiled in the days of our youth.
Humorously, these men wish for their children not to fail as they themselves did. Instead, they wish for their children to succeed like their grandparents. I think it is funny. I think it is a preoccupation only appropriate for not-so-hairy monkeys. Nicias and Laches, the then successful generals, promise to give the two frustrated men the best advice they can. Of course, their initial response is to turn to Socrates. Yes, both men speak of the philosopher as not only a great source of advice, but a very good teacher or recruiter and finder of talented teachers. So, they meet Socrates. I must mention, overall, the dialogue, as all these dialogues, are a great, indirect, praise of the teacher of the writer of the dialogue, LOL. For example, speaking of Socrates, Laches says,
"He was my companion in the retreat from Delium, and I can tell you that if others had only been like him, the honor of our country would have been upheld, and the great defeat would never have occurred."
Once the philosopher speaks, he first says that given as he is the younger, he would like the elder men to first voice their opinion on the topic. The specific question is whether the children should train in the so-called art of heavy armor. Nicias says that this is a great exercise, that it is most fitting for a freeman, that it is useful while serving in the ranks of a phalanx. Also, it is useful if ever caught in single combat. What is more, that it may engender a love for military matters and thus be conducive to learning about the art of martial command. Laches, on the other hand, utterly disagrees. He says that this so-called art or technique is a farce. The proof is that the Spartans do not care for it. He makes the analogy to how any truly good playwright or theater play inevitably comes to Athens seeking the greatest recognition. Therefore, why does this art not travel to the most militant city? Since there is disagreement, Lysimachus says that Socrates will hold the determinative vote. Plato has the philosopher say as if in derision,
"What? Lysimachus, are you going to accept the opinion of the majority?"
Subsequently, he explains that decisions are best when made by the better, rather than by the most numerous. As such, the philosopher broadens the discussion as he offers that they inquire into who, or what, has knowledge about proper upbringing. He explains how the question they are asking is in fact a question about upbringing.
When a person considers about applying a medicine to the eyes, would you say that he is consulting about the medicine or about the eyes?
As such, he is able to conclude that.
In a word, when he considers anything for the sake of another thing, he thinks of the end and not of the means?
To be clear, those who consider whether to teach their kids a certain art, in the broader sense, are in fact considering how to upbring their children. Laches points out that a man that has had good teachers is not necessarily intelligent or competent himself. Socrates agrees and shares that he himself has never had any such teacher, even though he always wanted to. Yes, he makes clear his own socioeconomic status as he says that,
"I am too poor to give money to the sophists, who are the only professors of moral improvement."
Nicias and Laches, on the other hand, have made such payments and taken such classes. This, no doubt, is a sarcastic joke. The subsequent dialogue makes it clear that Lysimachus is not acquainted with Socrates' argumentative tendencies. Nicias warns that the philosopher aims to embroil them in what will ultimately be a circular and infinite reasoning, lol. Let me quote him as he says,
Socrates will not let him go until he has completely and thoroughly sifted him.
Most memorable, Socrates has everyone vow that they will admit error if it is found that they are mistaken. Truly, it is most necessary for such vows to be made before any collective inquiry. Alas, few, all too few, have ever, truly, collectively inquired. After all the prior, Socrates says,
Then must we not first know the nature of virtue? For how can we advise anyone about the best mode of attaining something of which we are wholly ignorant?
For the sake of brevity and focus, the philosopher then narrows his question to the virtue of courage. Laches gives what he imagines is a definition of courage. However, as it is too common, he merely gives an example. I must comment that Socrates does not openly indicate the error. Doing such a thing seems to guarantee a negative response from the person being corrected. Instead, the philosopher wisely merely provides an example that refutes the efficacy of the alleged definition. After Laches admits the flaw of his supposed definition, Socrates says,
Now I was asking about courage and cowardice in general. What is that common quality, which is the same in all these cases?
Frustratingly, Laches does not understand the nature of the question. Therefore, the philosopher illustrates the effort at defining a concept.
What is that common quality which in all these uses of the word called quickness? I should say the quality which accomplishes much in a little time.
I should note that I should remember this manner of discourse. This approach, although more challenging, time-consuming, and potentially highly frustrating. What is more, it requires nothing short of theater-like acting. It is certainly, if correctly applied, the more efficacious manner of correcting people. Alas, no doubt, the whole of existence is silly. Returning to the play, Laches, now understanding the task, says that courage,
A sort of endurance of the soul.
Socrates asks, how can courage ever be good, ever be a virtue, if there are cases of foolish or bad endurances? Laches corrects himself by saying he means only wise endurance. The philosopher then quotes a famous refrain.
Wise? Wise in what?
He proceeds in explaining that courage cannot be a knowledge, for the danger in a trial is determined by whether one knows how to be successful. Meaning, the courageous is often he who has the least knowledge about the trial. Paradoxically, the philosopher continues.
But foolish boldness and endurance appeared before to be base and hurtful to us. And now, on the contrary, we are saying that the foolish endurance, which was before held in dishonor, is courage.
Most worthy of a laugh, Socrates soon after says,
We too must endure and persevere in the inquiry, and then courage will not laugh at our faint-heartedness in searching for courage.
Nicias enters the conversation. He says that the definition of courage was inappropriate. He quotes Socrates himself as saying,
Every man is good in that in which he is wise, and bad in that which he is unwise.
Therefore, Nicias concludes, courage is a sort of wisdom. By this term is meant a species of knowledge. That is, knowledge about what is fearful and what is encouraging, what is dangerous and what is safe. Laches takes great issue with the prior definition. He goes as far as calling Nicias silly and absurd. The two men, therefore, almost enter in a verbal conflict, as often happens in argument. Laches provides the example that doctors' knowledge of disease is irrelevant to courage. Meaning, doctors may know what things cause illness and what things are safe, yet that is irrelevant to courage. Nicias responds by indicating that the doctor may know what is safe and what is unsafe, but they do not know, alas they do not know, if cure is better than disease, if life is better than death. No doubt Nicias' argument is sound. The doctor does not know the future, and therefore, does not know if death by the disease would be best. Yet, Laches is most offended by what he takes to be a piece of sophistry. He provides the example of a soothsayer.
Who, but one of them can know to whom to die or to live is better.
Meaning, according to Nicias' definition, only a soothsayer could be courageous. Socrates tries to calm the quarrel. He rephrases Nicias' definition as,
Do you mean to affirm that courage is the knowledge of the grounds of hope and fear?
The philosopher indicates that this understanding would not allow brute beasts to be courageous, as they could not know what most humans do not know. Laches believes that the philosopher agrees with him. Yet, Nicias stands firm. He even adds that children, since they lack the faculties, cannot be truly courageous. Socrates says that hope and fear are things that reference the future. Yet, courage is not only a result of correctly understanding this one temporal direction. One also must account the present and past. Most curiously, he says that is why the generals are no longer the soothsayers. Remember that Nicias was responsible for the greatest catastrophe, a disaster of the greatest consequence that will live in eternal infamy, and all because he misinterpreted a religious omen. Plato may be making quite the insinuation. No doubt he makes lots of insinuations, but I cannot explain such details on this video. We will return to these things on the final analysis video. Either way, Socrates says that in this new understanding, courage would require knowledge of all things, of all past and future, of all good and evil, of all danger and aid. Yet, he who knows such things would be like a god. Ending the dialogue, Nicias and Laches exchange some new bards, but eventually come to amicable terms. Regarding whom would be a good teacher for the children, the philosopher most commendably says,
Every one of us should seek out the best teacher whom he can find, first for ourselves, who are greatly in need of one, and then for the youth.
Your narrator would venture to suggest the best teacher would not be a single entity, but a democratic whole. All possible teachers, perhaps competing teachers, is the only good teacher. Some would say that if the teachers compete, then, eventually, the best would gain reign over the youth's soul. But I think that would be false. Never let any teacher win your soul. Only then, teaching and learning win. Now, to pique your curiosity, to motivate you to watch the last video of the series, I gift you a teaser sample of the many aphorisms I crafted as I read this author.
May you never forget your errors, so that you never err again.
There are two kinds of cowards, those who wish to live forever well, and those who cannot live unless they live well.
Oh, what a joy it is to live without fear, and to die leaving an eternal renown.
If you enjoy or gain from my aphorisms, know that I have thousands. I will be writing books with short thematic essays composed out of aphorisms. These essays are profound and intriguing yet easy to read. For very cheap copies, look up Protagoras Pause in the Amazon website. I repeat, Protagoras Pause, that's my name.